On the TV screen, my face appeared amid the blazing flames with a headline running across. Attorney Beverly Stanton dies in car explosion near Portland. The anchor's voice was steady, mournful. And I, the woman declared dead, sat silently inside a damp cabin deep in the Oregon woods, holding a cup of cold, bitter coffee. Inside, I stared at my own face on the news and understood that to survive, I had to die once. Because only when the name Beverly Stanton disappeared from this world could I uncover who truly wanted to bury me for good. I still remember that evening vividly, the air thick with the scent of rain, the ticking of the living room clock slow and hollow. Ethan sat at his desk, a stack of papers before him, the Northvale Life Insurance logo faintly visible on the corner. When I walked closer, he quickly shut the folder, smiling as if hiding a birthday gift. "What's that?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Some paperwork for a new policy," he said, still smiling. "A precaution, that's all. You work so hard, Bev. If anything ever happens, I want you protected. But why is the beneficiary's name yours?" I asked quietly, my eyes fixed on the corner of the page he hadn't folded fast enough. Ethan looked up, his gaze darkened for a moment, then softened again into that familiar warmth. "Beverly, do you really think I need your money? I want to take care of us. It's only paperwork." The way he said it made me feel foolish for asking. A strange unease, like realizing everything in a familiar room has been slightly moved. "If that's all, then good," I said. Ethan came closer and kissed my forehead. The cologne he wore, the one I'd bought him for our 5th anniversary, suddenly smelled foreign. When he left the room, I stood still for a long time, watching the light spill through the doorway, listening to his footsteps fade down the hall. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the look in his eyes when he said, "Just a precaution." In the dim light, I could see the calculation behind his smile. The next morning, I made coffee as usual. Ethan walked into the kitchen, tie perfectly knotted, white shirt crisp. He kissed me as if nothing had happened. "I have a meeting with a client tonight. Might be late," he said. "What's his name?" "Why?" I asked softly. "Jason Marks. You don't know him. It's for the news site." I nodded. But when he drove away, I stood by the window watching his car disappear at the end of the street. Months earlier, life with Ethan had seemed peaceful. We worked separately, spent weekends hiking or watching movies. I once believed I'd found my true partner until the silences grew longer than the conversations. Ethan spoke less now, and when he did, his eyes were on his phone, waiting for replies. He came home later, claiming meetings or site visits. Once, I called him at 10 p.m. He said he was at the office, but the sound behind him was jazz music from the Golden Lamp, a bar he'd once sworn he hated. I started paying attention to everything. The way he placed his keys on the table. The unfamiliar receipts in his jacket. The texts he deleted instantly. Each fragment built a wordless dread inside me. One Thursday evening, he said he was meeting an investor. I followed him. I waited until he drove off, then took another car and kept my distance. Portland's spring nights were damp and heavy with the scent of pine and gasoline. Ethan stopped at a small hotel on the west side of the city. He wasn't carrying documents, a slim leather bag. I parked 2 blocks away and watched him enter the bar in the lobby. A short man with a buzz cut and a small tattoo on his neck was waiting. They shook hands and leaned close to talk. Then Ethan slipped a thick envelope into the man's hand. My heart hammered against the glass. When the man turned slightly toward the door, the neon sign lit his face, a prophet, stranger's face, but with eyes that froze my blood. I waited until they left before driving home. Maybe it was a legal transaction, I told myself. But deep down, I knew I was lying. Ethan had never hidden things from me until now. When he returned, I sat at the dining table pretending to read files. "How was the meeting?" I asked. "Good. Looks like we'll have a new project," he said, taking off his coat, voice so relaxed it almost sounded genuine. "I saw an envelope in your hand," I said quietly, like tossing a pebble into still water. He paused, then laughed. "You notice everything. It was an advance payment, they wanted to hand it over in person." I pretended to believe him. But in my mind, something had already begun to shift. The next day after he left for work, I opened his private file cabinet. Between company folders was a copy of a life insurance policy, my name on it. The number stood out clearly, $500,000. Date signed, 1 week ago. Beneficiary, Ethan Stanton. Tucked behind it was a small note. Northvale confirmed. My phone vibrated, a text from Ethan, don't forget dinner tonight. There's something I want to talk about. I stared at those words, feeling the chill creep up my spine. His voice echoed in my head, that offhand comment from days ago. Life insurance is the smartest investment, especially when the person's no longer around to spend it. That evening, I made dinner like always. He talked about work, his tone calm, his eyes soft. But underneath every word, something felt rehearsed. Beverly, he said, setting his fork down. I know I've seemed distant. It's stress. Once this is over, I promise I'll take you away, the two of us. I smiled. I'll hold you to that. Clearing the table, his phone buzzed. Tomorrow night. No mistakes. I slid it back before his footsteps reached the door. In bed I lay awake, the house ticking like a clock I couldn't stop. One phrase looped in my head: tomorrow night. Tomorrow, what would happen? I didn't know. But deep down, something told me that tomorrow was when Ethan planned to end something, or someone. That morning, Portland's sky looked like frosted glass. I sat in my office, eyes fixed on my computer screen, unable to focus. A soft notification pinged. New email. I almost ignored it until I read the subject line. He's moving money. Check the account ending in 8,291. I read it again and again, feeling as if someone had whispered in my ear. No sender name, just a random address. One photo attached. I opened it, Ethan's hand passing a thick envelope to a man half hidden in the shadows. The shot was taken at an angle, the yellow light from a parking lot lamp glinting off the Stanton Builders logo behind his familiar SUV. Not because of the photo, but because of where it had been taken. The angle suggested a narrow spot inside the hotel's basement. Who could have accessed that place? And why send it to me? I grabbed my phone and called Noah Briggs, an old friend who used to work on a city-linked financial crimes task force under the FBI's Joint Unit. He was one of the few people I still trusted, even though a long silence had existed between us since I married Ethan. Noah, it's me, Beverly. Haven't heard your voice in a while. Everything okay? I don't know, I said slowly, then paused. I need you to check a bank account for me. The last 4 digits are 8291. It might be tied to illegal transfers. You know, I'm not with the department anymore. But if it's a surface-level check, I can find a way. I don't want an official report. I need to know who's receiving the money and why. Who are you investigating, Beverly? My husband. There was a long silence on the line. Then Noah's voice came back, rough and low. Meet me at Riverside Cafe, 5 p.m. Bring everything you have. The cafe sat by the Willamette River, where we used to spend hours discussing cases back when we worked together. Noah opened the envelope, flipping through copies of the insurance papers, the photographs, and the printout of the anonymous email. His face, usually calm, changed slightly when his eyes reached the line that read 85,000 US dollars recipient, Leo Grant. This name isn't new, Noah said quietly. Leo Grant, he did time for aggravated assault in Salem. Got out last year. Worked briefly as a security guard for a private firm, got fired for inappropriate conduct. If Ethan's sending him money, that's serious. You're sure? Positive. I've read his file before. Nobody pays 85 grand to hire protection. Beverly, you need to be careful. I tightened my grip around the coffee cup. In my mind, fragments of memory overlapped: his words about life insurance, the secret phone calls, the envelope under the dim parking light. All of it now forming a horrifying picture I didn't want to face. Noah placed his hand on the table, his tone firmer. Have you thought about going to the police? I shook my head. There's no solid proof. If I'm wrong, I'll destroy my marriage. But if I'm right, I drew in a breath, then I might not live long enough to report it. You've always been smart, Beverly. But this time, don't try to play alone. I'm not playing, Noah. I'm trying to stay alive. That night, when I came home, Ethan was standing in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, slicing lemons for a gin cocktail. The ceiling light cast a glow on his face, calm, handsome, picture perfect. Where have you been all evening? He asked lightly. Met an old friend. Have you eaten? I replied, trying to stay calm. Yeah, ordered sushi. There's some for you in the fridge. I looked at his reflection on the steel, counter every move natural, yet I noticed his hand trembling slightly as he cut the lemon. A trickle of water ran down his wrist, glinting under the pale light. I opened the fridge, took out the sushi box, feeling like someone else was moving my body. When I shut the door, our eyes met through the frosted oven glass for a second, but it threw my heartbeat off rhythm. Beverly, he said, setting down the knife, you know I love you, right? Why are you asking that? Because lately you've been distant, like you're wary of me. I forced a smile. You're imagining things. Really? He stepped closer. Because if there's something making you doubt me, I'd like to know why. That face was the same one I'd once loved, but the eyes staring back at me now were cold, metallic. There's nothing wrong. I'm tired. He nodded, poured gin into his glass. Just remember this, everything I do is for our future, no matter what happens. Our future. I repeated, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. Yeah. Life can change any time. You have to be prepared. It sounded ordinary, but in his tone it felt like a warning. I left the kitchen, climbing the stairs slowly, careful not to let him see my knees shaking. In the bedroom, I opened my laptop and logged into the account. Noah had linked for me. The transaction list loaded clearly, and there it was. $85,000 transferred 2 days ago to Leo Grant. Description: consulting fee. I took a screenshot, saved it to a portable drive, then locked it in the hidden compartment beneath the floorboard. Every movement silent, deliberate. When I turned off the lights, Ethan still hadn't come upstairs. From the kitchen below, a faint yellow glow slipped through the stairwell, along with the soft clink of a glass against the counter, slow, rhythmic, like he was counting down to something. On the ceiling, the light reflections blurred into faint circles. I thought of Noah, of the photo from the parking lot, of the name Leo Grant I'd never met. Everything was falling into place like a perfect score, except now I could hear the deadly tune beneath it. And when an engine roared outside, the low, rough sound stopping right in front of the house, I knew the game had already begun. That morning, Portland was drowned in fog. The road along the river was so thick with mist that when I cracked open the car window, the cold air slid straight down my collar. I sat in my gray sedan, eyes fixed on the phone screen where a tiny red dot blinked, the tracker on Ethan's car. Noah had helped me install it last night. He said it was the newest model, stable signal, undetectable unless someone tore apart the whole system. I remembered his eyes when he said, if Ethan's hiding something, this is the safest way to know. I'd believed him. At least until this morning. The red dot moved slowly across the map from downtown toward the eastern outskirts, an area with no construction sites, no client offices tied to Stanton builders. I went still, heart thudding in steady, hard beats. Outside, rain-soaked branches hung low over the parked cars. I watched the dot for a few more minutes until it stopped at an unfamiliar address, Briar Hill Motel. I took a deep breath and started the engine. Despite my mind screaming to stop, I drove toward it, every turn sinking with the pounding in my chest. By the time I arrived, dusk had fallen. Ethan's car was parked near the back fence beside an old pickup truck. No sign of him. I stayed in the car, breathing quietly. 10 minutes later, the door to room 14 opened. Ethan stepped out with a tall, bearded man, broad shoulders, familiar face. The same one from the anonymous email photo. They exchanged a few words. Ethan handed him a thick brown paper bag. The two shook hands, and Ethan turned to leave. I ducked low, my heart hammering against my ribs. When his car pulled away, I kept my eyes fixed on the man still standing under the porch light. He lit a cigarette, scanning the lot, his cold gaze sliding toward my direction, as if he knew someone was watching. I slowly backed the car out, merging into traffic, exhaling only after 3 blocks. That night, I met Noah again at a small bar near the docks. The golden light, old jazz, and smell of whiskey made everything seem safer than it really was. He sat in our usual corner, dark jacket, tired eyes. You tracked him? I asked, sitting down. Yeah. He nodded, setting down his glass. He went to Briar Hill Motel, didn't he? How do you know? Just a guess, he said evenly. A place like that, no cameras, no attention. Perfect for meeting someone he doesn't want anyone to know about. You're sure the tracker can't be detected? Noah raised an eyebrow. Why are you asking? Because this afternoon, Ethan called me. He sounded normal, but before hanging up, he said something strange. You know, it's unsettling when you feel like someone's watching you. Noah set his drink down. After a beat, he gave a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. Maybe he was guessing. Don't worry. If he'd really suspected anything, he wouldn't have walked out of there so calmly. Something in that sentence made my stomach twist. You're talking like, you were there. His expression froze for a second, then he laughed softly. I was monitoring remotely, Beverly. Come on, don't look at me like I'm a suspect too. It was late when I got home. My phone buzzed. A text, no name, 4 words. You can't trust Noah either. The text came from an unknown number, no location data. Impossible to trace. I read it again and again, my throat dry. Don't trust Noah? But if I couldn't trust him, then who could I trust? Finally, I replied, Who are you? No answer. I turned off the lights, leaving only the dim glow of the lamp beside the sofa. In that half-light, the house felt unfamiliar. The house that once made me feel safest now held nothing but the soft tapping of rain against the roof. I closed my eyes, but my thoughts spun in circles. If Noah was helping me, how did he know where Ethan was without checking? If he wasn't helping me, why did he warn me to be careful of my husband? And who sent that message if not the person watching both of us? The next day, I met Noah at my old law office, the place where I used to practice. He walked in carrying the chill of the morning and a tired smile. You look like you didn't sleep. I got a message, I said, meeting his eyes. Someone said I shouldn't trust you. He raised an eyebrow, his tone dropping. From who? I don't know. No name, no number. Noah leaned back in the chair and sighed. Beverly, you know, when a woman starts doubting every man around her, it usually means one thing: she's scared. You're right. I am scared. Just scared of the wrong person. I don't blame you. No, I'm here for you, not for him. But if you still don't trust me, I can step away from this. No, I said quickly, then hesitated. I couldn't trust him, but I couldn't afford to lose the only person standing beside me either. I want you to promise don't hide anything from me. No matter how small. Noah looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. I promise. Daylight streamed through the window, splitting his face into light and shadow. I couldn't tell which half was real. That evening when Ethan came home, I tried to act normal. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, his warm breath brushing my ear. You smell good tonight, he murmured. I gave a faint laugh, hiding my trembling hand. What do you want for dinner? Anything you make. I need you here. The words were sweet, but something in his quiet ovary tone made my chest tighten. When he stepped out of the kitchen, I opened my phone to check the tracker app. The red dot was still there, the device was working. I exhaled in relief. Then the screen flickered. Device disconnected. Ethan hadn't even left the house. So who had turned it off? A cold shiver ran down my spine. I glanced around the room, everything looked the same, but the sense of safety was gone. My phone buzzed softly in my pocket. A new message from the same anonymous number. He found it. I could hear Ethan's footsteps on the stairs. In his hand, maybe the car key. I turned off the screen, set the phone on the table, forcing my voice steady when he called out, Hey, come upstairs, I want to show you something. I climbed the steps slowly. My chest heavy as stone. Each step matched the sound of rain outside, uneven, faint, and cold as a warning whispered from somewhere beyond. After seeing the photo of Ethan shaking Leo's hand in that dark parking lot, everything inside me froze. I knew that if I waited even one more day, the body in the coffin could truly be mine. Helen Morris, an FBI agent and my former colleague, came to meet me at the law office. She wore a simple gray suit, her face bare of makeup, eyes sharp and bright. After I told her everything I knew, she said only one sentence. Beverly, if what you're saying is true, then Ethan isn't a betrayer. He's a killer waiting for his moment. It felt like I'd confessed something I'd always known deep down. Helen opened her briefcase, pulled out a document, and laid it in front of me. Are you willing to take the risk? I looked at the heading Operation Phoenix, a plan to fake a death in order to gather evidence and protect a witness. Faking death means disappearing, Helen said slowly. No one, not your friends, not your coworkers, not anyone can know you're alive. We'll stage the scene. Once he believes you're dead, he'll expose himself. I looked down at my trembling hands. And if he finds out I'm alive, then there'll be nothing left to talk about. 3 days later, the operation began. A car identical to mine had been brought in from an inspection lot, same color, same plates, except for one difference. Inside was a timed detonator and enough leaking fuel to make the explosion look real. We'll stage the crash around 10 p.m. You need to leave home at least 2 hours earlier. Your real car will be moved to a safe location. The decoy will drive it to Highway 26. I couldn't take my eyes off the map spread across the table. That afternoon, Portland was gray and heavy. I stood in my bedroom, staring at the small suitcase I'd already packed. Part of me wanted to call Noah, to say something, anything, but Helen had warned, one wrong word and everything collapses. He could reveal something without meaning to. I chose the plainest outfit I owned, tied my hair back, and put on an old brown coat. When I came downstairs, Ethan was sitting in the living room, laptop open. He looked up and smiled. Heading out. I forced my voice steady, pretending to search for keys in my pocket. Just going to the office for a bit, there are a few files I didn't finish. Ethan raised an eyebrow, his tone a mix of surprise and suspicion. This late? I smiled, keeping it casual. Yeah, the deadline's tomorrow. I'd rather get it done now than lose sleep over it. He chuckled softly, eyes still on me. You're always so serious. Be careful, it's been raining all day. I know. Get some rest, I won't be long. He stepped closer, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. His familiar warmth made my chest ache. Come home early. We need to talk. I nodded and left, the faint scent of sandalwood following me out the door. When it closed behind me, it felt like sealing my own coffin. At the rendezvous point outside the city, Helen and 2 other agents were waiting. One of them, a young tech named Marcus, was checking the detonator. Are you sure no one will get hurt? I asked quietly. Marcus smiled. We only need the sound and the flames. The car's empty. You're safe. Helen handed me a new phone with an untraceable SIM. From this moment you contact no one. Once the news spreads, you'll stay in a safe cabin in the southern mountains. Everything's prepared. I swallowed hard. Will he believe it? If he truly wanted you dead, he'll believe it. That night, the rain fell harder. I sat in the safe car a few miles from the highway, staring through the fogged window. My car was up ahead, driven by Marcus. In my earpiece, Helen's calm voice counted down. The car's in position. Detonation in 5, 4, 3. A deafening blast tore through the night. The flash lit up Portland's sky like lightning. My heart clenched, even knowing it was staged. Smoke rose, merging into the gray rain. Helen's voice came through the radio. Perfect. Nothing identifiable remains. At 2 a.m., local news stations broadcasted footage of the crash. I sat in a wooden cabin deep in the Oregon forest, the TV screen flickering a cold blue light. Attorney Beverly Stanton dies in car explosion on Highway 26. Police confirm the body was burned beyond recognition, identified only by license plate and matching metal fragments from her Lexus RX. My photo appeared on screen, my smiling face beside the charred wreck. The anchor's voice was calm, detached. Her husband, Mr. Ethan Stanton, is cooperating with authorities. He expressed deep sorrow over the loss. The image shifted to Ethan, eyes red, voice trembling. She was my whole world. I don't know how to live without Beverly. I sat frozen. Not because of his words but because of what came next. As the camera panned slightly, Ethan lowered his head, and in that split second, when no one was watching, the corner of his mouth lifted into the faintest smile. A winner's smile, thin, unguarded. My hands clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. Helen stood behind me, resting a hand on my shoulder. Now we wait for him to make his move. In the days that followed, news of my death flooded the local media. Colleagues sent flowers. Acquaintances left condolences. Online, my photos spread with messages of mourning. And Ethan, he played the perfect grieving husband. He spoke to reporters, cried beside my portrait, even held a private memorial in a small church outside the city. Helen showed me footage from a hidden camera inside the house. Ethan sitting with a glass of whiskey, staring at our wedding photo. Finally, he said hoarsely, "It's over." It felt like someone was tightening their hands around my throat. But Helen whispered, "The more he believes you're gone, the more mistakes he'll make. Let him think he's winning this game." Saturday night, Ethan appeared in another surveillance video, this time in the parking lot behind the old bar. The place that used to be his meeting point with Leo. He opened the car trunk, took out a leather bag, and inside, the bills shimmered under the light. He made a call, his voice low but clear. "It's done. She's no longer a problem. Clean it up." Helen paused the footage, looking at me. "You heard that, didn't you? Direct evidence." He confessed. Part of me wanted to scream, to rush home and confront him. But another part, the rational piece that was still left, knew everything was only beginning. Because Ethan didn't yet know that the woman he thought had vanished was still watching his every move from the shadows. The first morning in the Oregon forest was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. The thick fog hadn't lifted yet, covering the space between the tall pines, cutting the outside world off completely. The small cabin Helen had arranged for me sat isolated on a hillside, a place filled only with wind, the smell of old wood, and a silence that forced you to relearn how to breathe. I poured myself some coffee, my hands still trembling. On the wooden table lay a newspaper with my photo on the front page under a bold headline, "Attorney Beverly Stanton, the tragic end of a symbol of justice." I stared at my own face, cold and unfamiliar. To live long enough to see your own death, that feeling was stranger than anything I had ever imagined. Helen had left early, leaving only a short note. No contact, no going outside, no opening the door for anyone. I nodded, but I still couldn't calm down. Because if the world believed I was dead, the only person with a reason to doubt it was Ethan. Around late morning, as I sat quietly by the window, a faint noise came from the porch. A bird? A falling branch, or something else? I stepped closer and peeked through the curtain. No one there. Only a brown envelope placed neatly on the wooden step. Outside, the wind whistled through the trees, cold enough to make me shiver. I opened the envelope. Inside was a single white sheet of paper, typed clearly in black ink, unsigned, "I know you're alive. And I have what you need." Below it was a string of numbers, looked like a temporary location code, followed by 2 handwritten words, scribbled roughly, "Don't call police." The first thought that came to mind. Leo Grant. The hitman Ethan had hired. That afternoon I called Helen. "Has anyone come near the cabin?" "No, but someone left a letter." "No name." "I think it's Leo Grant. If it really is him, then he's scared. Hitmen rarely come back to find their targets unless something's gone wrong." "You mean, Ethan might be planning to kill him too?" "With a man like Ethan, that wouldn't be surprising. If he wants every trace gone, Leo's the last loose end. But Beverly, listen carefully, you must not meet him alone. I'll have someone watch the area." I knew men like Leo, those who had lived too close to death, outside the law. If he said, "I have what you need," it meant he was desperate or bargaining. And even though I was scared, I still needed to know what he had. Night fell, and the rain returned. I sat by the fireplace, watching the flames dance, trying to push away the feeling of being watched. Around 11 p.m., the phone finally vibrated. The screen showed an unknown number. I hesitated a few seconds before answering. A low, rough male voice came through, sounding tired. "Don't hang up. I'm not here to hurt you." "Who are you?" "I think you know. I'm the man Ethan hired to kill you." I could hear the wind howling through the chimney and the sound of my heart pounding in my ears. "Why are you calling me?" "Because I didn't do it. I found out Ethan planned to kill me too once the job was done. I'm not stupid enough to take work that puts me in the ground." His breathing mixed with the faint static on the line. Finally I asked, "What do you want from me?" "I have a recording." His voice. "Talking about how the accident would happen." I also have a list of everyone involved. I can give it to you. But in return I need protection. I closed my eyes. How do I know you're not setting me up? Believe me or not. But think back to how he smiled for the camera when you died. And you'll know who's telling the truth. My chest sank. He knew about that, which meant he had been watching. I need proof, Leo. If you're real, send it to me. I can't send it. If I leave a trace, he'll find me. We meet in person. Where? His voice came steady and deep. The parking lot behind the parking. Old church in Hills Creek. Midnight. Alone. If you bring anyone, I disappear, and trust me, you won't get another chance. Then he hung up. Helen had told me not to meet him, but my instincts said this was the only moment I could touch the truth. I put on my coat, hid the small gun Helen had left me in my pocket, and started the car. The heavy rain made everything look like smoke. The road to Hills Creek was empty. Forests on both sides, rusted road signs glinting faintly. When I arrived, the clock had struck midnight. The old church appeared in the darkness, moss-covered stone walls, a cracked window, a roof tilting to one side. A pale yellow light glowed from the parking lot behind it. I turned off the engine, stepped out, my shoes crunching on the wet gravel. A man emerged from the shadows beneath the trees. A dark leather jacket, hood covering half his face. But the eyes, I recognized them instantly, the eyes of someone who'd lived long enough in darkness not to fear it anymore. Leo Grant? I called, my voice hoarse from the cold. He didn't answer right away. He raised his hand, holding a small USB drive. Here's the recording. Take it. I reached out, never taking my eyes off him. Why are you helping me? He gave a short, grim smile. Call it helping if you want. I want to live. Ethan told me that after you died, I'd get the rest of the payment. But I overheard him that night. He said, erase every trace, including the one who did it. That's when I knew I'd be the next trace to disappear. Do you know if anyone else is involved? You don't understand, Beverly. Ethan wants to erase your past, everything. Family, records, anything that ever proved you existed. Once you're gone, he gets full legal rights to everything. And he's not doing it alone. There's someone else. Behind him. A chill ran through my entire body. Who? I don't know. But he called the man Velasco. That name came up in one of his calls. He said he'd report back to Velasco when it's done. I didn't dare dig deeper. The wind howled through the pines, making the church roof groan. I gripped the USB tight, feeling like I was holding a key that opened straight into the abyss. Leo looked at me one last time, his voice low and rough. If you really want to live, don't go home. And don't trust anyone, even the ones who say they're protecting you. He turned, walking away, fading into the rain as if he'd never existed. I listened to his footsteps blend into the wind until there was nothing left but the cold and the dark. I turned the car around before the state line. Back in the cabin, I plugged the USB into the laptop. The screen flickered, revealing a single folder, Harrison, transfer. I frowned, surprised. The name made my chest tighten. Harrison Cole, my father. I clicked it open, my heartbeat quickening. Inside were dozens of transaction files, each listing, sender Harrison Cole, recipient Ethan Stanton. Different amounts, but all regular month after month for 2 straight years. It felt like someone had squeezed the air from my lungs. My father had died 15 years ago, a storm at sea, his boat lost in the waves, his body never found. I stared at the repeating name on the screen, my lips dry. No, this couldn't be coincidence. I opened another file. It was a voice recording, Ethan's calm voice, speaking as if to an old acquaintance. Don't send more through the bank. Transfer it to the secondary account under the nursing home's name. I'll handle the rest. Then another voice, weaker, raspier, but I recognized it instantly. That voice once taught me how to read, once sang me lullabies through sleepless nights. You promised to get me out of here, Ethan. And I am helping you, Harrison. You're being taken care of, you have medicine, a private room. Don't make this harder for me. You don't understand. She's still alive. I want to see my daughter. Ethan let out a short laugh, the kind that froze my blood. Trust me, you'll see her. At the right time. For 15 years, I believed my father was dead. Every year, I brought flowers to the shore, talking to the wind as if he could still hear me. And now, another man, my husband, was using his name, his money, to buy the world around me. That evening, Helen returned to the cabin. When I played her the recording, she went completely still for a long moment. If this is real, Beverly, then Ethan's been concealing a living person, coercing him and forging death documents. That's a federal crime. I bit my lip, trying to stay calm. Can you trace where my father's being held? Helen opened her laptop. Her fingers flew over the keyboard. After a few minutes, she turned the screen toward me. Here. A private nursing facility called Rosevale Care Home, registered in Clackamas County. Major funding from the Stanton Builders Trust, your husband's company. I have to go there. Helen looked at me, her eyes uneasy. No. You're under protection. If he finds out you're alive. I cut her off, my voice trembling but firm. If my father's alive, I can't sit here. Can you help me one last time? After that, I'll come back. Helen sighed. I knew she didn't want to agree, but something in my eyes made her falter. After a pause, she nodded. Fine. But we do it my way. 2 days later, I put on the nurse uniform Helen had prepared. My hair was tied back, half my face hidden behind a mask and thick glasses. The unmarked FBI van disguised as a pharmaceutical delivery truck stopped at the gates of Rosevale Care Home. The iron gate opened, revealing a row of gray buildings nestled among pine trees. Silent, eerie, almost sterile in its stillness. Helen stayed in the car, her voice quick through the earpiece. You have 10 minutes. Room 212, second floor, east wing. If anything feels off, say the code, Dahlia, and I'll send the team in. I steadied my breathing. The hallway was long, filled with the sharp smell of antiseptic. The soft squeak of gurney wheels echoed like the slow heartbeat of a place where time had stopped. When I reached room 212, I froze. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. The door was slightly open. Inside, the weak light revealed the face of a man lying in bed. His hair was white, his skin wrinkled, his eyes closed. But even after all those years, I knew him. I stepped in, my voice breaking. Dad? He opened his eyes, slowly turned his head. In that moment, the world I knew collapsed and came back to life at once. Beverly. I ran to him, taking his frail hand in mine. It's me. I'm alive. I thought you were. He shook his head weakly, his lips trembling. No, he keeps me here. Won't let anyone know. Tears streamed down my face, landing on his thin hands. Why, Dad? Why is Ethan involved with you? Ethan took everything from our family, including you. I froze. What do you mean? The accident that year. It wasn't a storm. It was him. He had men sabotage my boat to steal the company, the assets, the name. Once he thought I was dead. He came back for you under another name. He married you to make everything legal. The ground seemed to give way beneath me. Every memory came rushing back: the engagement, the vows, Ethan's smile as I signed the marriage papers. All of it part of a game he'd planned long ago. My father gripped my hand, his cloudy eyes trembling. You have to go. Don't let him know you found me. He has people here. He won't stop. I can't leave you. I'll get you out. No. You have to live. Don't repeat my mistake. Do what's right but be smart. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. I turned, seeing a flashlight beam slide across the door crack. Helen's voice whispered in my ear. Beverly, get out. Someone's coming. I bent down, kissed my father's forehead, my tears soaking into his hair. I promise, I'll come back. A man in a security uniform passed me in the hall, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. I kept my head low, walking fast, my hand covering half my face. When the car door slammed shut behind me, Helen met my eyes in the rearview mirror. I clenched my fists, my voice hoarse. My father's alive. And Ethan, he didn't steal everything from me, he stole my family's soul. The ferry horn echoed across the lake, deep and cold, carrying a mist that smelled of metal and damp salt. I stood by the roadside, watching raindrops cling to a passing bus window, the neon lights trembling in their reflection like the city's uneasy breath. Seattle was the same, wet, beautiful, distant. I pulled my knit cap lower and inhaled deeply. The smell of roasted coffee from the corner cafe mixed with diesel smoke, pulling at my chest with a strange, aching familiarity. Years had passed since I last came back to the place I once called home, but that word now felt like a ghost from another time. Helen was waiting in a black SUV parked a few blocks from my old law office. When I opened the door, she glanced at me quickly and nodded. "You okay? I never thought I'd come back here as a ghost." Helen smiled faintly, though her eyes betrayed the tension. "Believe me, ghosts still have power if they know who they want to haunt." Her words made me press my lips together. In my hand, the USB Leo grant had given me still rested. But what mattered more was already in my head, the plan to make Ethan destroy himself. Helen pulled up a digital map. "If you want him to fall, we need him to believe you barely survived or that someone else betrayed him. The name Leo is the key. He thinks Leo's dead. But if I make him believe Leo left something for me, he won't sit still. You know you're playing with fire, right?" He lit the fire. "I'm making sure it burns in the right direction." At noon, I wrote a short email to the private address Ethan kept hidden from his company. "I'm not dead. Leo contacted me before he disappeared. He left me what I need and I have it. If you want things to stay quiet, meet me tonight. Alone. 9 p.m. Warehouse 17. Fremont Docks. If you don't come, I'll send the USB to the FBI." I watched the words sent successfully flash on the screen, my heart pounding as if I'd stepped off a cliff. Helen had already set everything up. Warehouse 17 was actually an abandoned freight inspection site the FBI used for undercover operations. They had cameras, microphones, even remotely controlled lighting. We didn't want to arrest Ethan, we wanted him to talk, to expose everything before he could stage another act. By 7 p.m., rain poured down, steady, cold, relentless, as if testing who could endure it longest. I wore a long coat and stepped out of the FBI van. Helen's voice came through the radio. "All positions set. Stay in the light zone, remember don't let him get too close." I replied softly, "You know what I used to do, Helen. I've arrested men like him dozens of times. It's different this time. This one used to sleep beside you." I took a deep breath and walked into the warehouse. The lights were dim and yellow, wooden crates stacked high like walls. The air smelled of rust and damp metal. In the center stood a small table where I'd placed the fake USB, the perfect bait. I waited, the clock reading 8:58. 2 minutes later, the sound of an engine approached. The metal door creaked open, and Ethan stepped inside. Same dark suit, same slow, confident walk. Under the light, he looked like the man I'd once loved, except now that smile was pure calculation. "Beverly," he said softly as if seeing a ghost. "You're really alive? So you can still be surprised." He took a step closer, his voice lowering. "I thought, that accident." "Accident?" I cut him off. "You know perfectly well it wasn't. But you forgot not everyone follows your plans." I saw his eyes darting, scanning the room, the instinct of a man who always expects to be watched. "So Leo told you?" I shrugged, pretending to stay calm. "Before he disappeared, he sent me this." I pointed at the USB on the table. "You know, some people don't die for money. They die for their conscience." He narrowed his eyes, taking another step closer. "And what do you think you can do with it?" "The FBI. They won't believe someone who's already dead, Beverly." "Then why are you here?" The question made him flinch slightly, as if realizing he had walked himself into a corner. He let out a wet, weary laugh. "I came here to end this. Once and for all." "Good. Then end it." In that instant, a faint flicker appeared on the ceiling. The recording light had turned on. I saw Helen and the FBI team hidden in the control room. Ethan hadn't noticed yet. His eyes were still fixed on the USB. He pulled a small gun from his jacket, the metal glinting under the yellow light. "I'm not going to kill you. I need that. You know, Ethan, I once thought the cruelest thing you could do was betray me. But no worse was making me believe everything I had came from you." His face twitched for a second, then turned cold again. "We're both adults, Beverly. If you want to stay safe, hand it over. I promise I'll let you go. I have a promise too. That this time, you'll never hurt anyone again." Ethan looked at me, suspicion flashing in his eyes. He plugged the USB into the laptop he'd brought. The screen lit up, displaying the words to Federal Bureau of Investigation recording in progress. He stepped back, eyes wide. What the hell? I don't need the FBI to believe I'm alive. I need them to hear you. You don't understand, I did this for you. For your father. He wanted everything back, I had to protect what was mine. Protect? By killing me, imprisoning my father and stealing my life. Ethan shouted. I didn't kill anyone. It was supposed to be an accident. His voice echoed through the empty warehouse, merging with the sound of the metal door slamming open. Flashlights burst across the room, Helen's voice commanding, Ethan Stanton. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, falsifying death records, and federal money laundering. Ethan spun around, the gun slipping from his hand. His face drained of color, his eyes locked on me, a mix of terror and disbelief. Beverly, you planned all this? Helen stepped up beside me, watching the scene unfold. Her voice was steady. He just confessed. Everything's on record. The judge's gavel struck 3 times, echoing through the high-ceilinged federal courtroom, followed by the sound of pages turning, chairs shifting, and the distant patter of rain against the window. Rain fell lightly over Portland that day, blurring faces behind the glass. On the defendant's bench, Ethan sat upright, gray suit pressed, tie perfectly knotted as if he were still preparing for a board meeting. The white light hit his cheek, the same one that used to rest on my shoulder each morning. Now that face was rigid, silent, stripped of every expression I once knew. The clerk read out the charges. 2nd-degree conspiracy to commit murder. Forgery of legal documents. Money laundering and inheritance manipulation. His attorney, a silver-haired man, tried to maintain composure, saying something about mental strain, occupational pressure, a moment of emotional instability. But I could see it in Ethan's eyes, there was no remorse. Helen clutched the case file tightly, her eyes fixed forward. She touched the back of my hand gently, as if reminding me that it was finally over. Then the prosecutor played the audio. Ethan's voice filled the room. I didn't kill anyone. It was an accident. I heard it again, that moment when everything inside me had shattered one last time. The next video showed the footage from the hidden camera in the warehouse that night. Me standing across from him, holding the USB, light glinting off both our faces like a scene from a film with no director. My voice played steady and even. When it ended, I heard the judge's long, heavy sigh like wind passing through an old door. Then came the verdict. 35 years in prison. No parole. No bail. Ethan lifted his head, scanning the courtroom as if searching for something familiar. His eyes found mine only for a second, but long enough for me to see it wasn't regret. It was habit. The look of a man who once believed he could never lose, staring at the person he thought he controlled. The back doors closed behind him, leaving the faint scent of paper, old wood, and Portland rain in the air. You okay? Helen asked softly. I looked down at my hands, still clasped as they were while waiting for the verdict. I'm fine. I feel lighter. But not the kind of light that comes from winning. Justice doesn't bring peace, Beverly. It gives the darkness a shape. Helen gathered her papers. Leo Grant will get a reduced sentence. He cooperated well. Seems he's genuinely remorseful. She paused, then added quietly, you did the right thing. Outside the courthouse, reporters clustered on the sidewalk, microphones raised, camera lights flashing like sparks. Helen's black car waited by the gate. When I opened the door, she asked softly, want me to take you back to the cabin? I shook my head. No. I need to go somewhere alone. Then if anyone asks what you'll do next, tell them one thing, that you're still here. I watched her car merge into the traffic, disappearing into a sea of red taillights. A gust of wind brushed through my hair. I looked up, the sky had finally cleared. The first ray of sunlight pierced through the clouds, falling across the wet pavement, scattering into 1,000 glimmering fragments like pieces of broken glass. That morning, sunlight streamed through the 12th floor window, falling across the oak desk where I sat signing a stack of grant papers. The soft hum of the printer, the scent of coffee mixed with fresh paper, everything in the office of the Stanton Foundation, the organization I founded after the trial, seemed to be running in rhythm again. Outside the glass, The city stretched beneath a thin veil of mist, streets weaving like threads stitching through time. People still hurried, still lived, still believed justice could be found within concrete towers and inked signatures. I used to believe that too. Now, I'm not so sure anymore. Beverly, a letter came for you. Mia's voice, my new assistant, pulled me from my thoughts. The young woman set a brown envelope on my desk, unmarked, with 2 words written neatly in black ink. For you. Who brought it? A man, about 40. He left it and walked away. Didn't say anything. Did he leave a name? No, ma'am. That old flicker of instinct, the one that had saved my life more than me, once stirred again. I opened the envelope. Inside was a color photo. In it, Ethan sat on a metal chair inside Monroe State Prison, wearing a gray uniform, his hair long and unkempt. Light from a high window cut across his face in a narrow beam. But it wasn't him who caught my breath, it was the man sitting across from him. Noah Briggs. The friend who'd helped me plant the tracker, investigate Ethan, and the first to tell me, don't trust anyone, not even me. My hand tightened around the photo until the corners crumpled. Noah wore a white shirt, hands on the table, eyes fixed on Ethan. They looked like 2 men in conversation, not prisoner and visitor, but equals, talking about something they both knew. At the bottom corner, scrawled in pencil, some debts never end. That afternoon I called Helen. Are you sure? Noah Briggs. I saw it clearly. It's him. You still have the photo? Right in front of me. Don't touch it again. I'll send a team to trace its origin. It might have been sent to test your reaction. Helen's voice dropped lower. Beverly, do you know who Noah worked for before becoming an independent investigator? He was with the FBI. Then left. Why? For a while he was part of an internal task force linked to a black finance fund one Ethan once invested in. It's possible they crossed paths, or even collaborated. You're saying this could all be part of another plan? I'm not certain yet. But don't contact Noah. If he's still out there, you shouldn't let him know you received the photo. The room fell silent. I walked to my desk and picked up the picture again. On the back, a faint smudge of ink, as if someone had written and erased something. I tilted it under the light. Faint letters appeared. Pier 47, Wednesday 9 p.m. Pier 47, the old freight dock once owned by Ethan's shipping company. The place where I first met Noah. That night, I drove there alone. The pier was deserted, scattered with rusted crates and hollow containers. The wind pushed through them, making the metal doors clang, the weary sigh of a place too used to secrets. I turned off the engine, parked far away, and walked toward the old warehouse. A shadow moved under the yellow streetlight. I knew that silhouette instantly. Noah. He stood with his back to me, hands in his coat pockets, staring out over the water. When he heard my footsteps, he didn't turn around, he spoke quietly. I knew you'd come. The photo was from you. Yes. Why? Because I owe you a truth. What truth? That you betrayed me. Or that you and Ethan built this entire game together. Noah gave a faint, tired smile. If I told you both were partly true, would you believe me? He took another envelope from his pocket, placing it on an old cargo crate. Inside is a copy of the first money transfer contract from Harrison Cole's account, your father's, to Ethan. But the signature isn't his. What are you saying? I signed it. Under Ethan's direct order. The ground seemed to drop beneath me. Why would you do that? Back then I was undercover. Ethan bribed several officials, and I had to play the middleman. I didn't know your father was the real victim, not until I met you. I didn't know whether to believe him. His face, his voice, any of it could have been another performance. Then why keep helping Ethan after meeting me? I didn't help him. I helped you stay alive. If I hadn't alerted Helen, the FBI wouldn't have staged your fake death in time. If I hadn't disappeared after the case, you'd never have peace. Peace? I laughed bitterly. You send me a photo of Ethan in prison for what? To reopen everything? No. To warn you. Ethan still has people on the outside. They're looking for something he never managed to take from you. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe tied to the old investment fund under your mother's name. Helen's reopening the files. That's all I can tell you. The coastal wind picked up, scattering a few papers from the envelope. I bent down to catch them, one sheet corner marked with handwritten words. Operation Marlowe, Level 2. I looked up, but Noah had already stepped back, the light cutting across his face, half shadow, half glow. Beverly, some things aren't meant to be unearthed. You've survived. Don't let justice drag you under again. He turned and disappeared into the mist before I could call out. I stood there, surrounded by the cold, damp air, a rain-soaked paper in my hand, and a question that still had no answer. Sometimes I wonder if any of us truly ever escape the past, or if we simply learn to live alongside the wounds that never heal. Life doesn't always give perfect justice, but if we still have the courage to look back, that itself is a new beginning. If my story made you think of something that once touched your heart, share it with me. Where are you watching from? And have you ever trusted someone you thought would protect you? Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe for more true stories that go deeper than words.